You're tuned into No Good Music and
the HorrorCon Lounge podcast.
Today's episode is a special crossover episode with your hosts Jeremy and Rob.
Hey everybody, this is Rob.
And this is Jeremy. And I'm back.
Jeremy's back.
Yes. Been a while.
We were getting a lot of email asking where Jeremy was.
I'm here. I'm alive.
Busy working.
I'm working a lot.
So this episode, we are doing what we did a couple years ago, where this is a sequel to that.
Was it a couple of years ago or was it last year?
No, it was like a couple years ago.
Jeez, it feels like it was a year ago. Okay.
We did Universal monster films.
Yep.
We did all 6. We're doing prequels. Not prequels. Sequels.
Sequels,
yes. Were there prequels? I don't think so.
I don't think so.
We're doing sequels, but not all 6. I kind of picked the 3 that I thought might be the best to talk about. And we'll go into a little bit of the music on it too, because, music podcast. But so the 3 films are The Invisible Man Returns, Bride of Frankenstein, and Dracula's Daughter. And if you haven't seen these films, me personally, I love the Universal monster films.
Mm-hmm.
Some people don't. Depends on your age, I guess, if you like the black and white films. But they have a certain look to them. And I mean, we're talking 1930s, 40s.
Yep.
And what's amazing is that there was hardly any, the technology we have today. You don't know what's real and what's fake. Makeup had to be, applied for 4 hours, 6 hours. I mean, if you're doing any kind of makeup. Effects, even I'm not sure if it was the Wolfman or one of them, they had to paint. No, it wasn't. It was, I think, I'm thinking of King Kong, but still, they had to paint, the backgrounds. And, what you see is they had to build, they still do that sometimes with some movies.
Mm-hmm.
But so I want to start with the movie that I liked the least. And let's see if it was the one he liked the least.
We'll find out. There was one of the 3.
The Invisible Man Returns.
Dracula's Daughter. Oh,
okay. Yeah, this is the least favorite of mine. And I don't know. I thought the story was a little hokey. Now this is 1940, and it was directed by Joe May. Now, he was one of the pioneers, have a little bit on Joe May, German cinema. And in 1933, at the age of 53, he emigrated to the U.S. with his wife, Mia, at 53, came to the U.S., and he started working for Universal Pictures. And up until then, he had directed over 40 films, but all in, Germany.
Right.
Now, this stars Cedric Hardwicke, Vincent Price, who I love,
yep.
Nan Gray, and John Sutton. And the film is a sequel to the 1933 film Invisible Man.
Yep.
So this was 7 years later, and loosely based, of course, on the novel by H.G. Wells. Now, the film is about Sir Geoffrey Radcliffe, who is Vincent Price, who is condemned for a murder he didn't commit.
Yep.
So that's the kind of the basis for the story. He begs Dr. Frank Griffin, which is played by John Sutton, to inject him with the invisibility serum, despite Griffin's warning that the serum will drive him mad.
And just to be clear, this is not the same Griffin from the original Invisible Man. He's, I believe, the brother.
Yes, I think so.
But he's more...
Yeah, he's the brother of the...
He's trying to get this serum to be more, solid to the point that it doesn't have these side effects. Perfect it. There you go.
Well, the other thing is it doesn't seem like there's an antidote.
Right.
Which I'm surprised. You know, why would you give someone something, not just create something, and you're still working on the antidote.
Right.
Well, I can give it to you, but you're going to be invisible for, I don't know, until I work out the cure, you know.
Well, he was going to be dead anyway if he didn't take it, so.
Yeah. Now, I don't know if in the original, I can't remember if the Invisible Man dies, if his brother is dead, I would assume.
Yeah.
Now, the movie's 81 minutes long. It cost $243,750 to make, which in today's money is, let's see, $5,494,908.
Yep.
Let's see, and it made $815,000, which would be $18,372,000.
Yep.
And I think it's almost as much as the new Rock movie made today. I don't know. You know, it would, but of course it would be more than, well, it made more than triple what it cost, which is good, right?
Yep.
So he's in prison for the murder of his brother, Jeffrey Radcliffe, but he's escaped. He seems to have had a visitor by the name of Frank Griffin. And I have here now, if you've seen the first movie, you remember the main character. And we just talked about it. It was Jack Griffin. And it's the day of his execution.
Yep.
And Jeffrey's fiancée, Helen, is hoping that there will be some kind of reprieve. We next see a group of official-looking men walking towards his cell. A policeman runs out screaming, "He's gone." And again, we have some comedy. You know, it reminds me of like Abbott and Costello or something. I don't know. These police are like bumbling. It's like kind of the comedy. There is some comedy in these films, you know.
Yep.
Comedic tones. So the detective at Scotland Yard gets a call and they give him the name of Frank Griffin. So he wants him to look into Frank a little bit more. And the police are the ones who are guarding Radcliffe. And they describe both men as vanishing. But I don't think both of them were invisible.
No, just the one.
Yeah. Now there's a suitcase in the woods. And of course, we see it mysteriously open. There are clothes in it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Inspector Sampson from Scotland Yard shows up, confronts Frank about his brother and his serum. It's been 9 years since his brother caused havoc. I think I put that in here. And he thinks Griffin is perfecting his brother's serum.
Right.
Now, next we see Helen at some house in the woods. And there's a recluse who lives there. And he mumbles something about Griffin helping him with his foot and not having any visitors in years. So this is how Helen, I don't know. How does Helen end up there? But soon I don't know. Reading my notes. It's been a while since I actually watched this. Anyway. But you remember, she goes to this house and there's some weird guy.
Yep.
But soon her fiancé, Jeffrey, shows up and he's wrapped up. He's not in good shape. And it's funny because I don't know if you noticed, some wolves are howling and he's getting irritated.
Yep.
So I think it's kind of an ode to the Wolfman.
Yeah.
You know, but it's daytime too. I mean, he thinks they're searching for him, I think. And then Helen mentions that Jack should have an antidote in a few days. And again, what we said, so apparently he gave him the serum in the jail cell and forgot to put the antidote in the suitcase. Right? Well, then it would be a short movie, too.
Yeah.
So Jeffrey wants to leave to look for his brother's killer, but with Helen's charm and beauty, she convinces him to just relax, get some rest. He lays down, falls asleep. And now we're back at the lab. And we hear some guinea pigs in cages, right? Jack removes one of the invisible ones out of the cage and straps it down to the table and injects it with an antidote. First appears it's alive, and then I think we see its skeleton, and then it's dead. So, needs more work, the antidote.
Nope.
Policeman shows up at the house in the woods, confronts Ben. He thinks Ben has visitors and forces his way into the house and sees Jeffrey all wrapped up and Helen. And Jeffrey threatens the cop, and the cop runs to phone his superior. And then, like all good movies, we find out at this point that this guy, Richard, is very fond of Helen. There are a lot of horn dogs back in the 30s, 40s,
Cop is trying to phone back to Scotland Yard.
So you like this one?
I loved this one.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, I normally like a good Vincent Price.
I think one of the reasons. So in the original, you just see the Invisible Man check into a hotel, and he's kind of already losing his mind.
Yeah.
In this movie, Vincent Price as the lead character of the Invisible Man kind of has a personality to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
So you actually are kind of attached to his character before you see him going crazy because of this serum that he took. So I think it engages you into the film in that aspect. It's more of a mystery than it is a horror, because the whole time he's trying to figure out who killed the brother.
I mean, there's more of a story, I would say, with this one.
Yeah, and there's a lot of suspense, which I love about it. I think that's why it was my favorite of the three, but I think they had a better story. Like, I loved the original Invisible Man. I think that was number 1 or 2 on my list last year, or 2 years ago when we did this, but I thought this actually had a better story than the original one, just overall.
No, I agree. The first one was kind of a see what he could do to play with people's minds, and just he was not a nice person. So then we have a couple other scenes, something to do with the there's a mining company I think the brother owns. We're not going to give away the whole thing, but there's something to do with, well, first of all, we're trying to figure out solve who killed, what is it, Jeffrey's brother, right?
Right.
So they do figure out who it was, and it has to do with another company. There's a weird scene, there's a strange scene in the movie where they're spraying gas. I think they're trying to find Jeffrey.
Oh, yeah, they've got like the fog machines or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know if it's tear gas. They're wearing these weird masks with hoses on them.
Yep.
And so Jeffrey escapes with Helen. So, he's on the run. That's, up until this point, a little back and forth with the inspectors, people from Scotland Yard. Because they here's a movie, it's probably one of the earliest movies where you're trying to prove your innocence.
Yep.
But in the meantime, you got people after you.
Yeah.
So you got a lot going on. You're on the run, but you're also trying, like The Fugitive, the old Fugitive TV show. I mean, he was trying to prove his innocence, but also he had to hide, and he had to be someone else. So Helen, Jack, and Jeffrey, they're having dinner. Jeffrey is raging on about how he's getting to like being invisible, and maybe he's getting a little mental. And Jack tells Helen, while Jeffrey goes to change, that he's trying to get Jeffrey to take a drink, and that he's drugged his drink. He gets up. He tries to get up and then passes out. So the inspectors show up, and Jack wants to hand Jeffrey over, but ends up telling him he needs to tell the inspector about this guy Cobb. And that's where this guy comes in. And then, let's see, Jeffrey shows up at Helen's house to confront Richard. Richard is laying on the bed, and Jeffrey holds a gun over him. So there's some action going on here towards the end.
I think it was kind of funny. Maybe not funny, that is the right word, but you pretty much know it's Cobb the entire time. There's not really any other suspects that they lead you to think might have done this.
Yeah, it's one where you kind of learn who it is from, not the very start, but once you get into the movie a little bit.
Yeah.
There's a scene where Jeffrey's talking to a scarecrow.
Oh, yeah. The sentimental.
Asking if he can have his clothes. And next he's seen walking down the road towards the lab wearing the scarecrow clothes. his face, hands, and feet are invisible. So it's amazing how they filmed this, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was done with just a black background and black, you know, clothing or over his hands, and just to blend in somehow.
Right.
So this movie, we can kind of tell, I guess if you haven't seen it, you don't see Vincent Price till the end.
Right.
You don't see what Jeffrey looks like. And Vincent Price is pretty young in this movie.
Very young, yeah.
I don't know if it was one of his first movies or not. So a little bit about the movie itself. Universal first announced the development of this movie in March 1939, around the time Son of Frankenstein was doing well at the box office. And in May, Joe May was announced as director of the film, and it was going to be with either Boris Karloff or Bela Lugosi. He was hinted at playing the lead. But days after this announcement, Roland V. Lee was then announced as the film's director, and then May eventually became the director of the film. So there's a little back and forth there. And on June 29th, The Hollywood Reporter announced that Universal was looking for an unknown actor to fill the role, specifically noting they required a young, good-looking contender, even though he would remain invisible until the last reel. So Vincent Price commented that he got along with the director, Joe May, because May was difficult to understand, as he spoke no English. He said, "I had something of a rapport with him because of my knowledge of German." The 27-day filming schedule was not adequate for special effects and May's time to direct. Filming began on October 13th, 1939. And the studio's backlot was turned into an English mining town, which included a coal pile and coal escalator that was 75 feet long. Very ambitious.
I just looked. This was Vincent Price's fourth.
Oh, there you go. So by the second week of shooting, the film was already behind schedule. And by November, the crew were working until midnight with little expectation that the film would be done on time. The special effects by John B. Fulton, Bernard B. Brown, and William Hedgecock received an Oscar nomination in the category Best Special Effects, but it lost to The Thief of Baghdad, which I have not seen.
Yeah, I haven't seen that either.
Frank Nugent, Ted's father, no, not Ted's father, no relation, of the New York Times, negatively compared the film to The Invisible Man, stating it was neither so horrendous nor so humorous as the original film. And then we have a little bit about music here. It was composed by Hans J. Salter. He was an Australian-American film composer. He also composed film scores for The Wolfman, Creature from the Black Lagoon, Incredible Shrinking Man, Godzilla vs. King Kong, among others, but mostly horror and sci-fi movies.
Yeah.
And he lived to be 98. He died in 1994. So that's our first film.
As far as the music score went, this was actually my least favorite from that aspect.
Yeah, some of these movies I don't even notice sometimes, unless it's a dramatic effect, you know?
I was going to say, it just didn't do anything to entice me that much more.
Yeah.
Whereas the other two, there were some moments where, even if it was just a little sound effect that kind of pushed a scene over the top.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was lacking in this movie.
So I'm going to crack open this Angry Orchard. I got this variety pack, and we got, Jason, well, the Mask of Jason on this one. Blood orange, flavored with other natural flavors. There we go. Hard cider is good, I think, this time of year when it starts getting a little cool. Otherwise, it's not like a summer thing. And it's orangey. Blood orange. Speaking of blood, next film Dracula's Daughter. So you can tell what my number one film is. We didn't really rate these, but
No,
so this was your least favorite.
this was my least favorite.
Okay. I actually, my first line in my notes, this movie wasn't that bad at all. So it's 1936. Now, Jeremy doesn't particularly like vampire films.
That's part of the problem.
Yeah.
The story itself was good.
Yeah.
It was fine. I didn't need a female Dracula.
Yeah.
But anyway, go ahead.
So it's a 1936 American vampire horror film produced by Universal, of course. It was a sequel to 1931 film Dracula. It's directed by Lambert Hillier, who directed The Invisible Ray, starring Boris Karloff, and the Batman TV serials from 1943.
Serials?
Yes, I have these on DVD. They're interesting.
Okay.
Batman was in 1940s. They did it. I don't even know if it was on TV or when they called it a serial. Sometimes they were shown before movies in the theater.
Okay.
It's in black and white.
Yeah.
Costumes are
So
like awful.
This isn't Adam West.
No,
This
that was 60s. But they're interesting, you know.
Okay.
They have a 1940s feel to them. But the costumes are like really, like if you thought the 1960s Batman costume was bad, these are even worse.
Okay.
You know, it looks like they're made out of felt or something. I don't know. So the film stars Otto Kruger, Gloria Holden in the title role, and Marguerite Churchill features as the only cast member to return from the original, Edward Van Sloan, although his character's name was altered from Van Helsing to Von Helsing.
Mm.
And the movie's 71 minutes long.
I didn't even notice that.
And the movie cost $278,000, which is be $6,366 to make. There's no, I couldn't find anything on what the film actually made.
There was a lot of issues even making this film, from what I understand. But as I was doing some research, I thought I had seen that production got pushed off a couple of times, and then they liked the idea of a novel, but they couldn't use it because somebody else bought it to stick it to Universal.
Yeah, I think I have that. Well, I'll talk about the movie first.
Okay.
So the movie starts out with two inspectors. Of course, we always have inspectors. I got to have inspectors in the movie. They're walking down into Dracula's castle and discovering that Renfield and Dracula are dead.
Yeah.
So it picks up right after Dracula.
That is probably my favorite thing about the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I love, like, Halloween 1 and 2 did that.
Yeah.
When it picks up exactly where it left off, that's a great sequel to me. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
Yeah, no.
off.
And instead of, starting the film 20 years later.
Right.
Yeah. Because that's kind of a cop-out,
Yeah.
Some stories need to be continued. They encounter a Professor Van Helsing and ask him what's been going on here. And his response is, now I don't have any audio, but he says, "Murder, my friend." Now, the actors playing Professor Van Helsing may look familiar since he was in Dracula. I think I kind of just touched on that as Van Helsing.
Yeah.
He was also in The Mummy as Dr. Muller, who was an occultist. So right off the bat, there's some comedy relief again. When the one inspector, Constable Albert, is left to keep an eye on Van Helsing, Von Helsing, I'm going to say Van Helsing, while the other inspector, Hawkins, goes to investigate the bodies. So the inspector looks a little frightened and he moves farther away from Von Helsing. Like he doesn't want to be near, he doesn't know what went on here. He just knows there's two dead people.
Right.
Now, Constable Albert is played by Billy Bevan, and he's actually known for his derby hat. He's also known for his comedy routines, including one with an oyster, where he goes to eat an oyster and it's still alive.
Ew.
And it was reworked by the Three Stooges. So he actually inspired the Three Stooges.
All right. Second time they've come up today.
Yeah. Hawkins is played by Halliwell Hobbs. I like that name, Halliwell Hobbs. That's hard to say.
Yep.
And only one other horror movie I could find that he was in was Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde from 1931.
Oh, okay. It's a good one to be in.
I think I have that one too.
It's an iconic.
I have one that's a silent Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Nice.
I love the old movie. I think they're scarier than...
I agree. It's all about the music. That's why I touched on the Invisible
I think
Man
it's
Returns.
also when you watch them, you realize everybody in this movie is dead.
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know. So I can see the comedy element, at work with the two inspectors, since, the one guy was a comedian. So they're back at the police precinct, and it's Whitby Jail, to be exact. There's a little Laurel and Hardy or Abbott and Costello going on when Albert hears a noise. They go in to investigate in the room where the coffins are of Dracula and Renfield. Albert thinks it's a rat, but the back and forth is pretty funny between them. Albert is left alone at the jail, and soon after, a mysterious woman shows up. She wants to make sure Dracula is truly dead, but she hypnotizes the constable with a giant ring that's on her finger. And soon after, Hawkins returns with Sergeant Wilkes from Scotland Yard, and he's there to inspect the bodies. So Albert, he's hypnotized. He's just sitting there at his desk, staring straight ahead. And apparently the mysterious woman stole one of the bodies, which I think probably who it is.
Yeah.
And next we see this woman who's actually played by London actress Gloria Holden. And her performance in this movie influenced the writings of Anne Rice.
Yeah. For the Interview with a Vampire.
Well, yeah, and also the Queen of the Damned, Dracula's daughter is actually, I don't know how it's mentioned, but it's actually mentioned in the book.
Okay.
They said. I don't know if she just mentions the movie or mentions that name, Dracula's daughter. So pretty much at this point, we know who the woman is.
Yeah.
She is, in fact, Dracula's daughter. And her name is Countess Marya Zelenska. That's her full name. Now we see her in the woods burning a body. We can assume it's her father.
Yep.
Now a new character appears named Sander. He's sort of her butler or henchman. And I gather he lives with her, makes sure she's in her coffin, before daylight, takes care of her.
Well, I don't know if you're planning to touch on it, but she's burning her father's corpse because she thinks it'll break the curse.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. We need to break the curse.
Yeah.
Yeah. She doesn't want to be a vampire.
Yeah. Unlike her father, she's not exactly enamored with being a vampire.
So this is actually kind of a new concept. Not new, but because this movie's so old, but
at the time.
Yeah. Where is it a curse rather than are you destined to be a vampire the rest of forever until someone kills you, I guess. So then a body is found and 3 doctors are baffled how this person has lost so much blood. There's 2 sharp punctures over the jugular. Then we see a dapper guy named Jeffrey. He's about to go bird hunting.
It's not Jeffrey from The Invisible Man Returns.
Yeah. It's with a J, I think. The other one was G. Joffrey. Maybe that was Joffrey. The other one, yeah. And a woman by the name of Janet Blake, played by actress Marguerite Churchill, she pulls up and says he's wanted in London, and they drive away. So he was about to go, bird hunting. He's called to help defend Professor Von Helsing since he's being accused of murder. And he wants Jeffrey to defend his sanity. Von Helsing believes he can't be charged with murder of someone who has been dead for 5 centuries. So he already knows that this person was Dracula, I guess.
Right.
Now we're at a party. Countess shows up. And there's a great line in this when they offer her a drink. And she goes, "I never drink." And she pauses just slightly. Wine. That slight pause. I never drink wine. Right? Because she drinks blood. Now there's talk about the murder of a guy named, well, of course, Dracula. Apparently had a stake in his body, and now his body is gone. They're talking at the party. And Jeffrey and the Countess, they kind of hit it off. He mentions release, which involves hypnosis. So she thinks maybe he can help her. Then he meets up with her. I think it's the same night, and she doesn't want to be a vampire anymore. So Jeffrey gets a call, son, to go to the hospital. He invites the Countess to visit him at the hospital in the afternoon. But she tells him she can't, for obvious reasons.
Right.
Then we had Sander and the Countess planning to go to the art studio. Apparently, she likes to paint at night. And it looks like it's a room in her house, I guess. Sander recruits a girl named Lily to come back to the studio so the Countess can paint her. She asks Lily to remove her blouse so she can create a painting of her head and shoulders. Yeah. Lily, they feed her and give her wine. Wined and dined, swine and dine. Maria approaches Lily as if she's going to hypnotize her, and then we see Lily, unfortunately, on a stretcher. Now the patient, she's in a coma, Lily. She's not dead yet. She has marks on her neck. And Van Helsing looks... Von Helsing's then told of this other attack, which is Lily. And he says it's the mark of the vampire. And he tells Jeffrey to try and find this vampire. He gives him some tips on vampires. One is that the vampire casts no reflection in mirrors. And Jeffrey has never heard this before, and I can't believe he hasn't seen Dracula, by this point. And then where are we? I'm going to go into the whole thing here. So we got, let's see, Jeffrey's assistant, Janet. She's given her resignation letter. She shows up unannounced. She's all dolled up, looking pretty glamorous. Maybe going to a party, another party. But this is his assistant. This is the girl that picked him up, when he was going bird hunting. Mm-hmm. She runs into the Countess as she's leaving. The Countess just shows up at Jeffrey's house. And I thought, tell me, Jeremy, vampires need to be invited, don't they?
Yeah, they need to be welcomed in.
Or is it once they're welcomed in, do they feel like they don't need another welcome? They can just walk in?
I think you just need to invite them one time.
Oh, okay. So she tells Jeffrey about being overcome with something, probably draining blood out of people. She can't tell him. Jeffrey is mad at Maria that she's hiding something from him. And she wants him to come to her, she says, the continent, right? Yeah. Wherever that is. So he has to run off to the hospital again. He tells her to stay put. And when he comes back, he wants her to tell him everything. And I kind of feel at the point that maybe he knows she's a vampire, but I'm not sure. Because he doesn't do anything. What's he going to do anyway? So Janet comes back and encounters Maria. And her henchman, he just shows up. He kind of looks like Benicio del Toro.
Yeah?
If he got hit by a bus or something. He's a pretty frightening guy, this guy.
Yeah.
So Lily's out of the coma. She starts rambling on about a ring. She mentions a studio. And then she passes away.
Yeah.
But now he knows who's draining blood. Because studio, painting, ring. It's Maria, right? So Jeffrey rushes back. Maria's gone. And then he goes over to this building that Lily described in Chelsea. It's, I think it's above a bookstore or something. And the owner of the bookstore kind of says some strange things are going on upstairs. So Jeffrey finds Maria in her studio, and he still wants her to come with her. And he tells her she's coming with him to Scotland Yard. And then she then tells him that she's Dracula's daughter. She then tells Jeffrey that Janet, I have Janet here. Is that her name? Janet?
That was the assistant.
Oh, yeah, the assistant comes by after he left, and he finds out that Janet has not shown up at the party. She's missing. Von Helsing shows up with Sir Basil. And by this time, the Countess has disappeared, and they put flyers out looking for Janet to find her, right? There were no copy machines back then.
No.
That was pretty quick.
They probably had to draw them by hand.
Yeah. And then there's a tip that Marya has taken a plane to Transylvania to her father's castle. This harkens back to the original Dracula, that Jeffrey, he rents a carriage to go to Borgo Pass. And we'll kind of leave it there. Does Jeffrey make it to the castle? Is Janet still alive? Does the Countess make Janet and Jeffrey vampires and they form a little family?
Find out on the next exciting adventure.
You'll have to watch the movie.
Sounded like a Rocky and Bullwinkle pitch line there.
So then a little bit about the film itself. Actually, we'll start with the music. The musical score was composed by Heinz Rohmheld. Now, there's a scene in the movie where the Countess plays the piano. She calls it Cradle Song. And it was her mother. She says in the movie it was a song her mother sang to her to put her to sleep. There's no words. Now, I read that this was written by Heinz Rohmheld for the movie. Others say it was Chopin. Maybe stole it from him.
Right.
So this Heinz guy was born in Milwaukee in 1901, and he was a child prodigy. He began playing the piano at 4. He graduated the Milwaukee College of Music at 19 and performed in theaters to earn money to study piano in Europe. And in 1920, he went to Berlin, where he studied with Hugo Kohn, Ferruccio, I don't know these people, Busoni, and Egon Petri. That name sounds familiar. While there, he appeared in concert with the Berlin Philharmonic. Now, when he returned to America, he became involved in music for silent movies. And he was both a pianist and conductor. In 1925, he was sent back to Berlin as head of Universal Picture Theaters, but came back to America in 1929. And then when he came back to America, he moved to Los Angeles. He became a prominent cinema composer. He scored some scenes in Gone with the Wind, and he won an Academy Award for Best Original Musical Score for Yankee Doodle Dandy. And he lived to be 83. He passed away in 85. Now, this movie was Gloria Holden's first starring role, and reportedly she was extremely displeased at having been assigned the movie. And like many actors, she looked down on horror films.
Yep.
She had also seen Bela Lugosi struggle over the years since Dracula was made. Since it was made, he struggled to free himself from that typecasting. Now, if you've seen the film, or if you do see the film, you may wonder if Bela Lugosi is actually in the film. Because Dracula is seen in the coffin in the beginning of the movie.
Right.
It was not Bela Lugosi entirely, but it was Bela Lugosi in the form of a wax bust molded in his image to use in Dracula's coffin. And then some sources report that Lugosi was paid as much as $4,000 for this involvement, that they could use his likeness. The film was shot between February 4th, 1936 and March 10th, 1936. And despite studio orders that the film be shot on a 7-day per week schedule, filming ran 7 days over its schedule and $50,000 over budget, which is $1.1 million today over budget. And here, where Jeremy, you touched on this, that it didn't originally hold the rights to this movie. It was actually called Dracula's Guest.
Yep. And
it was taken from Bram Stoker's original novel. It was a short story, actually. And it was purported source material for the film. David O. Selznick, who was the executive of MGM, he negotiated a contract in 1933 with Stoker's widow to buy the rights to the chapter for an advance of $500 against a purchase price of $5,000. Universal bought the rights from MGM in 1934, but they would revert to MGM if Universal did not begin production by October 1935. and a date which was later extended to February 1936. So Universal rushed this into production with a script only partially completed to meet the deadline.
Yep.
Now, this film has a little bit of controversy. Sources report that the film was loosely based on Carmilla, an 1872 Gothic novella by Joseph Sheridan Le Fanu, which is often cited as the first published British work of fiction to deal with lesbian relationships. This is 1872. And the movie marked the first time that the trend was incorporated into a film.
Yep. There's definitely a couple of scenes where they implied that there may be either bisexual or lesbian orientation.
So there was a suggestion that Lily is to pose in the nude. They had to change that to only show her neck and shoulders. There would be no suggestion that she undresses. And there would be no exposure of her person. This was, they had to, change some things. And it says, it was also stated that the present incomplete sequence will be followed by a scene in which Lily is taken to the hospital, and there it will be definitely established that she has been attacked by a vampire. The whole sequence will be treated in such a way as to avoid any suggestion of perverse sexual desire on the part of Maya, or of an attempted sexual attack by her upon Lily. So we need to make it clear that it's a vampire. So I think that's about it on that.
It touches. There were some good scores throughout this film. This had music, or at least sound effects, that kind of drew you into that scene, or, helped liven it up in a sense.
Yeah.
Whereas The Invisible Man Returns was definitely missing some of those.
Mm-hmm. I've probably seen the film, but not in a while. I mean, I have all these films. The one I've seen probably the most is the next one, is Bride of Frankenstein. And I think most people have seen this movie.
Yep.
And we'll go into this somewhat. I'm not going to, go into it a little bit. My favorite Universal is Frankenstein. So this is obviously probably my second favorite. I do really like Dracula, too. But I like all the original. I think the only one we agreed on was maybe The Mummy and the original ones.
Yep, The Mummy we didn't like.
So it's 1935 film, and it was, of course, the first sequel to the 1931 film Frankenstein. As with the first film, Bride of Frankenstein was directed by James Whale, who also directed The Invisible Man. And Boris Karloff reprises his role as the monster, and Colin Clive as Dr. Frankenstein. Now, the sequel features Elsa Lanchester, and I don't know if you caught this, maybe you did if you looked this up, but not only as the bride, but she is also playing Mary Shelley in the beginning of the movie. So you actually see what she really looks like.
So I didn't look it up, but I read about it. You may have the cliff notes or the details afterwards, but this was another one where there were struggles. They wanted the original director. He didn't want to do a sequel.
Okay.
And then finally he agreed, but part of it was that she had to do he wanted to actually see her or something on screen. So
okay,
that's how I found out about it. Yeah.
So this is 75 minutes long. Movie cost $397,000, just $9,350,000 to make, and it made over $2 million when it came out, which would be approximately $47 million. So it cost, $397,000 and it made $2 million. So that's pretty good. So the film takes place immediately after the events of the earlier film. So there's no time jump or, other locations. The film starts at the castle on a stormy night. Actually, the film starts, it's a intro to Frankenstein, where we see Percy Shelley, Lord Byron, and Mary Shelley. And if you know the story, it was a stormy night, and they all agreed to try and write a story, like a scary story.
Right.
And this is where she writes Frankenstein. She probably didn't write it in that one night. And I think she was like 18, 19. I mean, she wasn't that old.
No.
Now, she reminds them that her intention for writing the novel was to impart a moral lesson, the consequences of a mortal man who tries to play God. And Mary says she has more of a story to tell. So the scene shifts to the close of the 1931 Frankenstein, where villagers are gathered around the burning windmill and cheer the apparent death of the monster. Now, Hans, who is now played by Reginald Barlow, is the father of the girl the creature drowned, and he wants to see the monster's bones. And sadly, he falls into a flooded pit underneath the mill, where the monster, having survived the fire, strangles him. So that's supposed to be the father of the girl. If you remember in the original, that was banned, that scene, for a while.
Yep. That was, so, I don't know if you're going to talk about it, but I'll bring it up.
Yeah.
One of the things I hated about this movie, this would have been my number 2. There's like absolutely no killing. It's all implied. But they go to like this weird barn owl when things are about to happen in the movie.
Okay.
What is up with that owl?
Actually, I don't think I remember that. More than once?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So the monster hauls himself from the pit, and he cast the guy's wife to her death. So now he's killed the whole family.
Yeah.
He next encounters Frankenstein's servant, Minnie, who flees in terror. And you may remember the actress who plays Minnie. She was in The Invisible Man. She's always like screaming hysterical. It was the same woman that was in The Invisible Man. So the body of Henry Frankenstein, who was thought to have died at the windmill, is returned to his fiancée Elizabeth at his castle home. Minnie arrives to the sound of alarm about the monster. She's trying to warn about the monster, but it goes unheeded. And so Elizabeth, seeing Henry move, realizes he's still alive. He's nursed back to health by Elizabeth. And Henry has renounced his creation, but still believes he may be destined to unlock the secret of life and immortality. And he's sort of rambling on like a madman. So Henry gets a visitor. It's his former mentor, Dr. Pretorius. Woman Minnie. He's like, Dr. Pretorius!
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And then Henry, a short time later that night, visits the lab of Dr. Pretorius, where he shows Henry several I can't even say that. Something he's created. From humans, I guess. They're called, I think they're human Suli or something. That's what it said.
Okay.
But it's a very odd scene. Very odd. I don't know if you probably remember.
Oh, yeah.
There's there's a king. Maybe it's King Henry VIII. and a queen. There's a bishop. And there's some other guy. They're all in jars. They're alive.
Yeah.
They're real people from the past, I guess. But, they're miniature form. And it's pretty inventive for 1935. There's a pipe laying on the table. So they had to be made like huge, these things, to make. I don't know how they did this.
No, I don't either. And this movie had the most humor. You mentioned some of the comic relief in the other two.
Yeah.
This one to me was the funniest of all of them.
Well, I have here, I almost think the same like editors or set people also worked on Abbott and Costello.
Yeah. It's like Alice in Wonderland, but some of those miniature people of the past.
So Pretorius wants to work with Henry to create a mate for the monster. It also involves him growing an artificial brain while Henry gathers parts for the mate.
Right.
Now, the monster saves a young shepherdess from drowning. Now, the shepherdess is played by Anne Darling, and I looked her up. She only went to be in 4 more films in 1935. She was in The Raven. It says, as an autograph hound. That's what
Nice.
Way back then, there were autograph hounds. So then, yeah, and she wasn't in. So anyway, the shepherdess screams when she sees the monster and in turn alerts 2 hunters who shoot and injure him. They raise a mob, sets out in pursuit, and then the monster is captured and he's tied to a pole and he's hauled down to a dungeon. And then, of course, he escapes. He overpowers the guards, escapes into the woods. And this is one of the most famous scenes, I think, in horror movies, is the monster encountering the blind man.
Yeah.
I mean, it's sad. It's kind of unsettling, also a little endearing. And the blind man actually teaches the monster words like friend, good. And people get this confused that this is in Frankenstein, the first one.
Right.
Because I guess we can say, but this movie, even though it's called The Bride of Frankenstein, we don't see the bride until the very end. And that's, right. But we'll get to that because that's the downfall, like for me, because you really want to see the bride, I think, a little bit more.
Yeah. So real quick, while you're talking about the blind man teaching the monster, not Frankenstein, words, Boris Karloff was actually very against that.
Yeah.
He didn't want to speak at all.
Yeah, I think I heard that.
Yeah. He felt that it kind of ruined the image of the creature or the monster, or whatever you want to refer to it as.
Maybe Sarah Karloff told us that too, or something.
Yeah, I mean, I saw it in some research too, but...
Yeah, also, if you're listening and you haven't listened to our interview, we interviewed Sarah Karloff, Boris Karloff's daughter. I think that wasn't that 2 years ago?
Year.
Maybe that was last year. I don't know. Time goes by so quick. He feeds the monster. He plays the violin for him. And the monster seems to know he likes music. He gets really excited. Actually, he gets excited when the blind man asks if he wants to hear music. So how does the monster know music?
Yeah.
And he's taught to smoke a cigar. Even a monster likes a good cigar, I'd say. He tries to teach him that there is good fire and bad fire. And I think it would have been much better scene. I mean, it's a great scene if he had tried to teach him how to play the violin.
It's the blind leading the blind in a sense, because even though the monster can see, he doesn't have senses. He doesn't have feelings. Like, he doesn't know this stuff. So
yeah. And then he's dancing to Put It on the Ritz. Oh, no, sorry. That's Young Frankenstein. So then we have the hunters. I don't know if they're the same hunters. They stumble upon the cottage. Yeah. And they recognize the monster. Yeah. Who they're trying to, that's on the loose.
Oh, because, he clearly could blend in a crowd.
Mm-hmm. Now, one of the hunters is John Carradine. He's 29 years old in the movie. Okay. And he is the father of course, David Carradine, Keith, Robert, who we met, one of the nerds. So the monster attacks them, burns down the cottage as the hunters lead the hermit away. So the monster takes refuge in a crypt, and he sees Pretorius and his cronies, I have here Carl and Ludwig, breaking open a grave. The monster reveals himself. Let's see here. Oh, Pretorius is, I have here, having supper. I don't know if he's eating in the crypt. Well, he reveals himself, the monster, and he has some food. He learns that Pretorius plans to create a mate for him. And we hear Frankenstein talking more. Apparently he can talk now. I mean, he holds a skull in his hand and says, woman, friend, right? Yeah. Henry and Elizabeth are now married, visited by Pretorius, and Henry expresses his refusal to assist him. Elizabeth doesn't want anything to do with this Dr. Pretorius and wants him to leave. Of course, he wants Henry to help him create life. Since, the brain is ready, Henry refuses. The monster comes in and he's talking to Henry's amazement. I think he says Frankenstein. And then I think the monster goes off to, I don't know, Elizabeth has gone by that time, and I think he's going to look for Elizabeth. Yeah. And Pretorius guarantees her safe return if Henry participates. So Henry returns to his tower, laboratory, despite himself grows excited over his work After being assured of Elizabeth's safety, Henry completes the bride's body. Now, there's only, by the time we see her, I have here, in all her glory, there's only 4 minutes left in the movie. 4 minutes. But can you imagine a modern horror movie where they advertise the main character and then you don't see him till the very end?
Oh, like the newest Halloween movie, Halloween Ends or whatever?
Oh, maybe.
Remember that was all the buzz?
Yeah, but that's a character that's already, this is a new character I'm talking about.
That's true.
You know, say they showed, Art the Clown. Art's in the last 4 minutes.
Yeah.
Right? And they never make another movie with this character. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's true.
It's not like they made another Bride film.
Right.
I mean, I think there's actually a new movie coming out called The Bride, another one. So there are other takes on it.
Right.
So the film ends pretty abruptly. There's not much more of an ending. I mean, I think it's cool if nobody has seen The Bride of Frankenstein and to see it like new, like to see some of these movies. Like I know my son hasn't.
Right.
I don't know if he ever will, but and I don't know if you noticed, but in the credits at the end, it says, I think for The Bride, it says the monster's mate.
Oh, okay.
Question mark.
Okay.
So I think they wanted to have some mystery that Mary Shelley, the woman playing Mary Shelley, like who's playing the bride?
Right.
Maybe people didn't put 2 and 2 together because she does look drastically different.
Right.
But we know that now who it was. Now the music of the film, we'll go into the production, casting, censorship. So the music was composed by Franz Waxman. And he, again, German-born composer, conductor of Jewish descent, primarily known for his work in films. His film scores include Bride of Frankenstein, Sunset Boulevard, Rebecca. I don't know if you've ever seen Rebecca.
Nope.
You got to see that. Alfred Hitchcock.
Oh, okay.
A Place in the Sun, Stalag 17, Rear Window, Peyton Place, among other films. He received 12 Academy Award nominations. He won 2 Oscars in consecutive years for Sunset Boulevard and A Place in the Sun. And he also received a Golden Globe for Sunset Boulevard. And the success of his score for Wales' Bride of Frankenstein led to the young composer's appointment as head of music at Universal Studios. However, he was more interested in composition than musical direction for film. And in 1936, he left Universal to become a composer at MGM. He died in 1967. He was 60. He's done over 150 film scores. Very prolific. So the preparation for the sequel began shortly after the premiere of the first film. But script problems delayed the project. Principal photography began in January 1935, with creative personnel from the original returning in front of and behind the camera. And it was released to critical and popular acclaim, although it encountered difficulties with some state and national censorship boards. And as far as casting, sources report that Bela Lugosi and Claude Rains were considered, with varying degrees of seriousness for the role of Frankenstein's mentor, Pretorius. Because of Mae Clark's ill health, I don't know who she is, Valerie Hobson replaced her as Henry Frankenstein's love interest, Elizabeth. And this is what I found interesting, because of this woman's ill health, you think, oh, she didn't live too long.
Mm-hmm.
She lived to be 91. She passed away in 92. And she starred in a lot of films up until 1970. So I don't know what her health problem was, but obviously she couldn't endure, being on a film.
Right. Maybe she was pregnant or something and having that type of sickness.
So early in production, the director decided that the same actress cast to play the bride should also play Mary Shelley in the film's prologue, to represent how the story and horror in general springs from the dark side of the imagination. Jack Pierce co-created the bride's makeup with strong input from the director, especially regarding the bride's iconic hairstyle based on Nefertiti, Egyptian queen from the 18th dynasty, 1300s. Lanchester's hair was giving a Marcel wave over a wire frame to achieve the style. Now, she disliked working with Pierce, who she said really did feel like he made these people like he was a god. In the morning, he'd be dressed in white as if we were in a hospital to perform an operation. Or he was in a hospital to perform an operation. She said of her bride costume, I drank a little liquid as possible. It was too much of an ordeal to go to the bathroom, all those bandages, and having to be accompanied by my dresser. But that was only one scene, you know. Right. I don't know how long it took them to film it. Now, about the censorship, the film was subjected to censorship both during production by the Hays Office and following its release by local and national censorship boards. Joseph Breen, lead censor for the Hays Office, objected to lines of dialogue in the original script in which Henry Frankenstein and his work were compared to that of God. He also objected to the number of murders, both seen and implied by the script, strongly advised White to reduce the number. Whale agreed to delete a sequence in which Dwight Fry's nephew Glutz kills his uncle and blames the monster. And shots of Elsa Lanchester as Mary Shelley, in which Breen felt too much of her breast were visible. No boobies in 1935, folks.
Nope.
Following its release with the code seal of approval, the film was challenged by the censorship board in the state of Ohio. Censors in England and China objected to the scene in which the monster gazes longingly upon the body intended for reanimation as the bride, citing concerns that it looked like necrophilia.
Yep.
Well, he's dead anyway. He was reborn. Yeah, so I think that's all we have. So I'd like to thank everybody for listening. Again, this is part of our Halloween series. I'll say series.
Yep.
We just interviewed Kevin. I'm not going to attempt his last name. The lead in Basket Case 1, 2, and 3. So look for that coming out. I think that will be out before you hear this. And this will be more towards Halloween. You'll hear this one. Anyone who wants to email us, nogoodmusicpodcast@gmail.com. This is also, it's going to be a crossover, right?
Yes,
this
it
one
is. Yeah.
With the HorrorCon Lounge.
Yep.
That Jeremy and Kristen do. I urge you to listen to that. They review horror movies. They all about horror. So you'll be hearing this on No Good Music and also HorrorCon Lounge. Like I said, you can email nogoodmusicpodcast@gmail.com if you're in a band, you have any new music coming out, we'll listen to it, and maybe we do something on our other shows where we do Give It a Listen. We'll play your song, talk about you. So, or if you just want to tell us how we're doing, whatever, I'm the one that answers the email. So, so thanks for listening, and always remember to turn off the TV
and turn up the music.
You've been listening to No Good Music and the HorrorCon Lounge crossover episode. Exit music by the band 99%. Today's episode was recorded live and slightly edited for your listening enjoyment at the Did You Say 7 Studios in Washington, New Jersey. You can find No Good Music on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, our host site Podbean, and mostly anywhere you listen to podcasts. Be sure to follow our Facebook and Instagram pages. And as always, thank you for listening.